What I recommend is go and experiment. Go try different things. Like, you're going to find what works for you. You have to be willing to get curious about what's available to you. So it's not like one thing's better than another. One thing might be better for one person than another person. And I really believe you have to find your way. But one of the things I do believe is that you have to create, if you want to really heal and you want to create embodiment, it's really the small things that you do every day. Whether it's 5 minutes on the foam roller, whether it's feeling your body drink a hot drink, or rolling out the yoga mat, or whether it's lying down and doing breath work. You're going to, when you learn what your body needs and you can really pay attention to what it wants, you're going to know what's right for you. And that's different for each person. So like, my practice in the morning might not work for somebody else. Somebody else might need to get up and shake off the trauma, right? And go take a cold plunge. The millions of other things that are available to us to create embodiment and to start that healing process.
Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Ilene Smith with us. Ilene is the author of Moving Beyond Trauma. She's also a former trauma therapist, creator of the Truth Method, a successful entrepreneur, investor, and mentor to startup founders. She's the creator of the Miracle Mastermind for entrepreneurs, which bridges the gap between psychology and psychedelics. She's a somatic experiencing practitioner, or SEP, a certified professional coach, CPC, and she holds a master's degree in mental health counseling and a master's degree in exercise physiology. I've read her book, Moving Beyond Trauma. It is profound. It's powerful. It's got 400 and some reviews, 5 stars, most of them on Amazon, and she's a force for good in the world. Ilene, it's so good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we know each other through the Genius Network and Joe Polish. As I mentioned in the bio, I have read your book, Moving Beyond Trauma. I found it really powerful. And I'd love to start with your origin story of how you ended up creating that book, because you went through quite a lot of trauma in order to have that kind of life experience and expertise to help others move beyond their trauma.
So great question. I went back to school in my early 40s to become a therapist. And I was really, at that point in my life, I had worked through a lot of the trauma that I had been through, or at least I had thought I did. And I was doing an internship at an eating disorder clinic, and I had struggled myself throughout my life with eating and exercise disorders. I was really quite curious. In the clinic that I was working in, there was other therapists that were trained in what was called somatic experiencing, which was a therapeutic modality that was developed by Dr. Peter Levine. Peter Levine was trying to understand why animals in the wild didn't get traumatized, but people did. And the short version of what he discovered was that animals have an innate ability, because they don't have a prefrontal cortex, to use the parts of their brain that are oriented more towards sensation. And what they would do is they'd have an experience where they were threatened, and then they would automatically have this biological reset, and they would shake off the trauma. So basically, animals innately know how to work with their own nervous systems. But we as human beings, we get the interference from the higher functioning parts of the brain, which are more advanced, the prefrontal cortex, and we try to override what our body wants to do by using our brain. What that led me to realize in my own journey is that even though I had understood what the issues were in my life, where the trauma had been, and I had been doing things to really help myself. So at that point in my life, I was less reactive, but everything sort of still felt like a management issue. I never really felt this sense of inner peace and calm. So it was always sort of managing the anxiety or whatever the dysregulation was in my body. And I used a lot of exercise to manage it. And when I realized that ultimately from this work that we have to bring the body into the healing process, that any form of maladaptive behavior, anytime we're not feeling balanced, it's basically an imbalance in the nervous system. And our brains can't override what the body needs to learn. And so I got trained in somatic therapy and somatic experiencing. And I just kept shaking my head. I had been in therapy my entire adult life. And I'm saying how, somebody who's pretty well read in personal development has sat in a therapy room for years. How come this information about bringing the body into the healing process and the nervous system and how humans need to find a way to regulate their systems, how come this information is not available? And that's why I wrote the book, because I thought so many of the books that were available were more textbooks or oriented towards therapists, but they weren't oriented towards the layperson who was essentially still trying to understand why they understood their problems, and yet they still couldn't manage whatever it was: addiction, eating disorders, being reactive to people, shutting down when there was conflict. All of the things that we know don't make us feel whole or like we're functioning fully in our own lives. So that was really the impetus for the book. And I wrote it so that people could understand that they're not alone in this journey.
Yeah. Now, the difference between somatic experiencing and trauma release exercises, or TRE, how do those differ and how are they similar?
So somatic experiencing is a specific way that Dr. Levine had uncovered to begin to use talk therapy to basically lead to, let's just say, the real story. And the real story is what's in the body. So even though in somatic experiencing, you might be in conversation, the focus is more on the nuances of what your body's doing and what the sensations are in your body. So that essentially what we're doing is we're helping a person who's had trauma, who's disconnected from their body. We're helping them to reconnect with their body in a healthy way and to be able to tolerate all those sensory experiences so that the body doesn't go into a fight, flight, or freeze response, which is basically our survival physiology.
Right. And so David Berceli has been on this podcast, and he's the creator of Trauma Release Exercises, TRE, and he took me and my wife, Orion, through an example, kind of sample session of doing these TRE exercises. And we were shaking. So first we had to get to a place of remembering a traumatic event and then shaking involuntarily because your muscles, your large muscles get so tired eventually after doing this particular exercise where you're kind of pushing your torso up, and eventually your legs kind of, instead of buckling, they just kind of start shaking. And I was really impressed and amazed how impactful that was. It really letting go of some old trauma that I didn't even think was an issue. I just thought I kind of got over it, but then remembering it and then doing this exercise, I don't know, cleared something even more. So I'm curious if there are similar sorts of exercises in somatic experiencing as well.
So I love that you're bringing this into the conversation, because that's a modality, right? That's a somatic modality to help release the trauma from the body, right? So you're bringing your mind back into an experience, and then you're basically taking that experience and you're letting all that stuck energy that's in the body, and all that emotional energy, you're allowing it to come up and come out, right? So it's exactly what I was saying earlier about having that biological completion that the animals have. So in somatic experiencing, we do different exercises that will bring a person back to safety. So an exercise that might bring a person back to safety is, let's say somebody walks into a therapy room and, they're coming from, a busy day and a stressful day, and they're not present. So what we're going to do is we'll orient them back into the room. So I might invite in the therapeutic setting, I might invite somebody to take a minute, feel their feet on their ground, and start looking around the room and noticing specific things in the room. To notice, like, pick a color, notice red objects in the room. And what that does is it brings that person back into the safety of the environment. Right? Because if they're not present, they're usually probably somewhere else, somewhere in some sort of panic or disassociative state, or, trying to find some sense of safety. And so that would be a very basic exercise that we do. And then there's other exercises, things like that we do with the vagus nerve. There's a VOO exercise where you're VOOing and And so there's a little bit more nuance. It wouldn't probably be in the somatic experiencing setting. The exercises tend to be a little bit more subtle and more gentle ways to start bringing somebody into the body. But all of the exercises are oriented towards bringing somebody back into the environment or the body. Like we do things like the hug, giving yourself a hug, being able to feel the outer edges and the boundaries of your body. Because a lot of times when there's been trauma, we lose a sense of where we start and end. So that's about feeling the physical boundaries of yourself. So there's many little exercises like that. But ultimately, we're doing the same thing as what you're doing in the shaking exercises. There's just different entry points to get somebody there.
This reminds me of an exercise I've done with Jay Lasko. She's an amazing practitioner who does muscle testing on herself while you're on the phone with her. And she's helping to clear cellular imprints you carry across lifetimes. And first of all, pinpointing where in the body these different feelings or issues are, and then what it relates to. So grief related to family in the, let's say, stomach or in the pancreas. And then what it relates to, which family member in that life, like which lifetime, or is it this lifetime? So she's doing all these muscle tests and having you repeat it. And one of the exercises I did with her, she walked me through that was really quite amazing, is she had me imagine my energy being just on the surface of my body, but then a little bit out, like a couple of inches. So expand my energy out several inches beyond the borders of my body, of my skin, and then expand it to fill the room. Now fill the city, or fill the neighborhood, I guess was next, and then fill the city with your energy. Now fill the state, now fill the country, fill the world, fill the solar system. And each time I got, I don't know, it just felt like I was so much more massive and more etheric and more connected to God. And then she had me go backwards after I got as far as I felt comfortable, back, all the way to just under my skin.
Yeah. So we do some exercises like that. Like we'll go through the layers of the skin. So different ways. And ultimately what you're trying to really do is you're helping a person bring in imagery, sensation, affect, and meaning. We have something in somatic experiencing called PSYBAM, which is all the different channels: sensation, imagery, behavior, affect, and meaning. And so we're bringing all of those elements into somebody's existence so that they can start beginning. That's how you're going to orient towards your body, is through all those channels. So it sounds like that was she's doing something similar as well.
Yeah, that was really cool. So what's that acronym again?
PSYBAM: sensation, imagery, behavior, affect, and meaning. Yeah.
Wow. You are a wealth of knowledge. And so I'm curious how you relate what you've studied and created to something like the body keeps the score, and this concept of different parts of your body storing or trapping certain emotions. There's the emotion code, there's the body keeps the score. What kind of overlap or what kind of wisdom do you pull from books like The Emotion Code and Body Keeps the Score?
Bessel Van Der Kolk was, one of the original, he was one of the original and early on people in the field of modern psychology. So Bessel and Peter Levine. So there's lots of overlap. I mean, it's all, the underlying theory behind it is all the same, is that we can't resolve trauma just by talking about it. Like talk therapy alone is not going to do the job. And so Bessel Van Der Kolk and Peter Levine were really the two that have led this over the last, 30 years. that trauma healing is more than just going to cognitive behavior therapy. I think a lot of, people are always like, well, why is CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, so popular, those sort of modalities? And I think I talk about this a little bit in the book, is that's where the universities did all the research, let's just say 60s and 70s or 50s, 60s, that what that led to, even though the evidence might not be super solid, especially like for eating disorders and addictions, like CBT is not super effective. It's what's been used because we've had evidence-based research and it was good enough. But now what we're seeing is that there's a lot more studies being done on the body-mind connection and on the importance of trauma in the body. And also we have the science, the neuroscience, and the imaging and all the things that are helping us see that the impact of bringing the body into the healing process.
What is the standard way of dealing with an eating disorder or death of a spouse? And because you've dealt with both, and how should it be handled, like to be more effective and quicker in getting a result for the person going through that?
So I would say the first thing I would say to that is that there's really no quick fix. In order for somebody to really heal through anything, you have to be able to move through it, to move past it. Our Western society has conditioned us to the quick fix, take the pill, 10 sessions of therapy, you should be fixed. It doesn't work that way. And healing from anything is a journey. And until you can settle into the pieces where you're going to be uncomfortable, it's really hard to have any shifts. And that discomfort is not here. It's physical. I will say, like when my husband died, I tell this story often, and it's probably the best example I can use, is that day one, I could barely open my eyes. And the pain was that intense. The only thing I can do, right, and day two was probably even more intense. And then there was an inflection point where it dropped down a little bit. But the only thing that I can do to heal in that process was to wake up every day and allow myself to experience and feel the intensity of whatever I needed to feel. It wasn't going to kill me. They were just feelings. And so I can tell myself that, but then I have to let my body settle into it. And so it's when you can build the body as your safe container to move through each experience, and then you start building some resilience and a sense of mastery over it. You start learning that you can manage and handle. Your body is resilient. It's going to be able to handle whatever it needs to handle. So I would say there's no right or wrong way, but you have to move through it, and you have to know that the slower you go, the faster you're going to get there. I do believe is that you have to put things in place to help the healing process along. And those things are, you have to get up every day and find some way to get in your body, whether it's getting out for a walk, whether it's meditating, whether it's yoga. There has to be some element of bringing yourself back in. And there has to be connection, because one of our greatest healers, you can sit in a therapy room and you can do somatic work and all these things for years. But if you don't learn to create safe connection, it's really impossible to heal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're getting in your body, as it is so important. And even just the understanding that your body and your soul and your mind are not all interchangeably the same. You're not your body. You're not your mind. You're not your thoughts. I think it's a necessary precursor to having a successful, happy, and fulfilling life. One of the first things I do every morning is to thank God for returning my soul to my body. And I just think that this is such a crucial component to life. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'd be kind of curious, how do you return your soul to your body? Is there a ritualistic practice for you?
Well, in Judaism, there is a ritualistic practice, and that there's a particular prayer called Modalities, but I don't know Hebrew, so I know a little bit, so I don't say it in Hebrew. I just have that thought and I direct it to the Creator. So first is I acknowledge the Creator, and then I'll express my gratitude, and I don't even say it out loud. Think it to Him.
Yeah. So it's about getting connected in the morning. First thing that you do is you get connected to Source in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's moving beyond yourself, right? And that's the way for you to get back in your body. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of both. Yeah. Interesting.
I'm curious, what are your morning rituals that are most profound or impactful for you?
So there's several, and I've had to create rituals for myself in the morning because it's the thing that helps me stay the most grounded and stay out of the anxiety. And so I wake up in the morning and I start with hot water and lemon. I get on the foam roller, and so I want to get in my body. And the foam roller, it works with the fascia, so it helps me get connected to my body. And then I begin with 10 gratitudes. I write down 10 gratitudes. So what it does is it allows me to connect to the good feelings of the things that's, again, embodiment, the things that I can appreciate about my life and go take that into my day. And then I'm coming into my body by working with my fascia, that sheath of connective tissue that wraps around our whole body. And so it's creating more circulation, and it's creating a connectivity to feel into my body so that I'm not dissociating from it. Like, I think we do that a lot. We move around and go about our day, but we're not even connected to the thing that's transporting us from one place to another, right? And helping us with our life force. So I always want to stay connected to that piece of life force for myself.
You mentioned the fascia, and I want to say something about this, that I used to believe the old adage that the skin is the largest organ of the body, but that's actually false. I learned much later on, that it's the fascia, much larger.
Do we consider the fascia part of a layer of skin? Do we? I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I think it's a separate organ, is my understanding.
Interesting.
And so when you have an issue in, let's say, your posture or hip pain or something like that, because the fascia is such a web of interconnecting tissue, something that might be an injury from years ago in your shoulder is now manifesting as a hip pain, because it's all connected through the fascia. And so where weakness is, there's another part of your body that's overcompensating for it. And it's due to the fascia trying to protect you from getting injured from those weak areas, and then weakening strong areas that eventually become problems.
That makes sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? And if one trauma is not healed, then it's going to impact and create compensation and weakness in other places. So I can buy into that, and it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So you mentioned yoga as a form of getting into your body. I'm curious what forms of yoga you're into and why, or if not, what's a replacement for yoga for you? Pilates?
So I love yoga, and I think yoga has definitely, over the years, as I was trying to find my own way to healing, it was just always a place for me to slow down and be able to feel the sensory pieces of my body and get connected to my body awareness. I love just a vinyasa flow yoga. I like a yin. I like yoga nidra, which is yoga sleep. So you can go in and just relax. And, yoga is not always it's about breath. It's not always about movement. It's about really being able to get connected with your breath. So I think any form of anything that allows you to get connected to your breath and to movement and to be able to feel yourself spatially and be in the awareness and the presence of your physicalness is a good practice. So I don't think, people always like, what should I do? And what I recommend is go and experiment. Go try different things. Like, you're going to find what works for you. You have to be willing to get curious about what's available to you. So it's not like one thing's better than another. One thing might be better for one person than another person. And I really believe you have to find your way. But one of the things I do believe is that you have to create, if you want to really heal and you want to create embodiment, it's really the small things that you do every day, whether it's 5 minutes on the foam roller, whether it's feeling your body drink a hot drink, or it's rolling out the yoga mat, or whether it's lying down and doing breath work. When you learn what your body needs and you can really pay attention to what it wants, you're going to know what's right for you. And that's different for each person. So like, my practice in the morning might not work for somebody else. Somebody else might need to get up and shake off the trauma, right? And go take a cold plunge, or the millions of other things that are available to us to create embodiment and to start that healing process.
Yeah. Yeah. Infrared saunas and
It's
sun
all,
gazing
there's
and
so much
so
good
many
stuff
different
out
modalities.
there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, no, there's not one that's better than the other. They all have their own unique benefits. It's just what your body needs and what your nervous system requires.
Do you feel fully healed and resolved about the loss of your husband?
I do. I do. This is an interesting piece to talk about because I'm as resolved as I think I can be for the moment. There's different layers of it. Do I feel traumatized when I go back and I think about the experience? No, I actually feel like really proud of myself for getting through it and how I handled it. And it was really the first time in my life that I stayed really connected to other people and I let people support me and grew my sense of community and came out the other side of it feeling, I would say, just more whole and recognizing that experience was there for the teachings. And it was brutally painful. I learned a massive amount about myself through it. So when I think about what I've been through, I feel actually really proud of the person that came out on the other side of it. So all of that is great. It's interesting that you'd asked me because 2 days ago, a dear friend of mine called me and she said her husband died suddenly in the middle of the night. And, I went back to, oh my God, the first couple of days after my husband died, like really feeling into what she's going through. I'm like, wow, like I got through it. So, I'm in a situation now, right, where I can support somebody else really fully and comfortably. And so that's a really solid indication for me that there's been a lot of healing for me around it. Yeah.
I'm curious, have you gotten any kind of messages from him, any kind of without a doubt signs that his consciousness?
Yeah, I have. Yes, several along the way. A lot of dreams, a lot of messages in dreams, and I'm really peaceful about where our relationship is now. So I think if we're paying attention, the messages do come.
Yeah, and part of it, I think, it has to do with asking. And so,
for sure.
if we're fully utilizing all the support we have from our unseen support team, we're asking all the time. Because if we don't, the angels and all that are just sitting on the sidelines saying, I wish she'd ask. We can't interfere with her free will, but if she'd ask, we would jump in and assist.
Oh yeah. So it's
have you had any
quite
kind
peaceful.
of experiences that are so otherworldly, supernatural, that sort of thing, that unlikely to have occurred by chance, that you can look at that as like, yeah, this was a connection with the divine or with my higher self or with my support team, my guides, angels, whatever?
I think they're happening every day.
Yeah.
Like I don't believe anything's an accident. So I believe it's all divine intervention, and it's our job to pay attention to what's being shown to us. And sometimes we have more capacity to pay attention and look, and other times, we lose some of that awareness. But I think it's happening every day and it's right in front of us, and we all have access to it if we choose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I believe that. And so it's again, like for me, it's about staying really connected to that source. When my husband died, I had a transformative experience through his death. And I very quickly recognized that he left me exactly where I was supposed to be on my path, and he left the planet exactly when he was supposed to. And that very quickly got me to a much higher level of trust. Because I think at the end of the day, like what we're really talking about is, can we just trust and surrender to what's being shown to us? But that's a scary place to reside, but it's really a place where you're going to get the most peace. And I don't believe that we can find that space without building ourselves and our internal mechanisms in a safe way, and that we see ourselves as the safe container, because then we can really trust whatever else is going to happen along the way.
Yeah, well said. So where has psychedelics fit into this equation for you? Because I know you've got this mastermind, the Miracle Mastermind that you're putting together or have put together, and it bridges that gap that helps bring those two worlds together of psychedelics and psychology. Clearly, we've shown your level of depth and expertise in psychology and all the modalities we've discussed. What about psychedelics?
I'm glad you asked.
Mm-hmm.
So I closed my therapy practice about 2 years ago because I was kind of in this place of, it's kind of been going on the last 4 or 5 years of getting to the last layers of what I needed to get to really feel like I was in a place where I can spend more time in a flow state. And I knew that there were things that were getting in the way. And I started going down this path of exploring the psychedelics and playing around and going to ceremonies and learning about the different kinds of medicines, plant medicines and other medicines that there were. And about 2 years ago, I said, okay, I'm done with this part of my life and being a therapist. I don't know what's next. And I just took a deep dive in there with the psychedelics and the pieces of the work that I think I still needed to resolve. And there was still some fear left. There was still some shame left. And there was still some places where I was betraying myself. So fear, shame, and self-betrayal. And as I started working with the psychedelics and breaking through these last pieces, I realized that I had taken myself through a transformative process and what I call the truth method. And it's the work that has gone into this Miracle Mastermind. And it's really about bringing together, when I say psychedelics meet psychology, it's really this piece of embodiment. It's everything we're talking about. So it's taking all the trauma pieces, all the embodiment that we are not allowing ourselves to have because we're still in our mind. And it's bringing that together in a way that what the psychedelics do is they help us surrender so that we can break through the places that the mind is getting stuck to bring ourselves back into the body. And once we can bring ourselves back into the body, those things that are holding us back, fear, shame, and self-betrayal, those things will lose their charge. They're all their charge. So in the mastermind, we work with an entire therapeutic process that helps to step into all the pieces of ourselves that we keep turning away from. And then once we're in there, we work with the psychedelics to learn how to surrender to all those pieces and break through to the other side so that we can embody what we don't want to be, what we've been avoiding, I would say, so that our lives, you're let out of prison. You're totally free. At that point, you are in a complete space of freedom. And when you're in freedom, you can go into flow. And so that's really the big idea of the mastermind. It's about really helping participants to really get out of the places where they're stuck and so that they can live their lives fully and fully. So it's a really powerful process. It's a year-long process. And what it does is it takes somebody through an incredible transformative experience. So I'm pretty excited about it. We're running the first cohorts here in the next, I think we're going to start the first one in June.
So while we're recording it prior to June, but when this episode airs, this will have already happened.
Yeah, I'm super, super excited.
Yeah, amazing. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
So which psychedelics have been most transformative for you and why?
Different things at different times. I've done a lot of psilocybin. I've done ayahuasca, DMT. I've done all of them. And they've all given me different things. Right now, what I'm really drawn to is the MDMA and psilocybin together. I think that's the mind and soul opening. I think it's a heart and soul opening, and I think they're impactful, and they're especially with people that are first starting this journey, they're non-threatening. And they really allow somebody to open themselves up in a way they never have before. So I'm really liking that combination right now. I think it's a lot of impact. I'm in the zone right now, and this changes too, of I don't think we necessarily need to go to really intensely uncomfortable places to have breakthroughs. Even though I see discomfort is really important. So I know, I like this combination is I'm being called to right now in a big way.
Cool. And have you had an experience of feeling or being part of the oneness? Like I interviewed Deanne Adamson, and she had a profound experience with Bufo.
Oh yeah,
I've
had
I'm
those.
Curious if you've had anything like that.
I had an experience with Bufo where I literally felt myself going through the womb and into another dimension. Like any doubt that I ever had that there was more, this showed me that there's so much more than what we're seeing and what we can even uncover in one lifetime.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Was that recent?
Yeah. It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I was pretty blown away by what was revealed to me. Mm-hmm. Just really showing me that we're here having these experiences and these perceptions and what we think is reality, but reality is so much more than what we even have. We know we're just seeing a small piece of it.
What have you changed in your life because of that realization or that insight?
All the fear is gone. Like there's nothing left to fear because I've gone to the depths of places that were pretty scary and unknown, because I think so much of what we fear is what we don't know. And it's like, it's almost irrelevant. Like it's all, whatever it is, it's going to be, it's all okay. And there's so much more beyond just here. So it's almost like I've been able to go into a curiosity about the unknown versus the fear of being fearful of the unknown.
Yeah, beautiful.
And that's been really, really impactful for me. So I can it's allowed me to go for like my life in a different way and not be scared. I'm not scared to take chances anymore. I'm kind of like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
It doesn't work out. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's
like playing
okay
a game of Monopoly or something. What's the worst that could happen
What's the worst that could happen? Yeah. It's like, it's going to be okay, even if it's not okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the biggest piece for me, is like to be able to let go of all of the stories and ideas that I've had about what it should be or how it should be. Like, it doesn't matter. It's going to be whatever is going to be is going to be. And that's the beauty of life, is the surrender, right? It's like, that's all we're getting to. Like at the end of the day, like through all the psychedelics, through this Miracle Mastermind, through whatever process we go through, we come back to the biggest piece of it all is, can you surrender and just be open-hearted to the experience? Whatever that experience is, good, bad, ugly, painful, joyful, blissful, it's all about the surrender to it. You know, that's what I want to show other people, and to reveal to them that if you can go into a state of surrender, like your life is so free and so powerful, and you become so much more impactful to yourself and to others. And that's what we're here to do. At the end of the day, I don't care like how you slice it or dice it. We're here to connect, and we're here to impact other people.
Mm-hmm. And to grow closer to God. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, we're here to find purpose, and you can look at it a million different ways, but purpose is about connection and impact.
Well, it's a lot easier to see that and say that when we're feeling connected and in alignment and in purpose and on mission. It's a lot harder when you're going through trauma and you're just experiencing a ton of anxiety. So how do you assist somebody getting out of that fear, fight, and freeze response and the anxiety, the panic attacks, or whatever form their trauma is surfacing in? to a place where they can feel that depth of their soul and their connection to all that is. Obviously, the somatic experiencing and all that we've been talking about, but
you have to it has to be action, right? And so this is the part where there's willingness or willfulness. Every human being has that choice. And so the willingness means you got to do something that's going to be so out of your comfort zone and so uncomfortable and exactly what you don't want to do. When you want to put the covers over your head, you got to take, and I went through this with when my husband died. It's like every day I had to get up, I had to get out of bed, and I had to make connection. I didn't want to. And this is where the willingness so healing becomes a choice, and every person has to make that decision. And it requires you to do lots of things that you don't want to do. But what's on the other side of that is powerful. So I would just say that you don't have to do a lot. You have to do a thing to move you in the right direction when you don't think you can get out of your own way. And that right thing might be, I don't want to go out of my house. Well, go walk down to your mailbox, go check your mail. Go out to the store, talk to one person, create a connection. Because it is, as I said, and we know this, it's like energy moves energy. So if the energy's stuck, you have to make a choice to move it.
So what's that one thing that your friend is doing or you're helping her do who just lost her husband 2 days ago?
It's staying connected.
Yeah.
It's staying connected. It's making sure that her children are here right now. And when the dust settles and it gets quiet over there, because about 2 or 3 weeks after the death, it gets quiet. Went through this, is to make sure that person is still staying connected, and to remind her every day of the value of connection, and to make sure I'm there to support her in that connection, and to be a good friend and to be of service to somebody else.
Yeah.
And to help her get out of her own way when she can't.
Oh, you're a very good friend. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So, well, this was a really powerful discussion. Thank you so much for sharing with vulnerability and transparency. If our listener wants to work with you, perhaps join your mastermind, your Miracle Mastermind, or get coaching from you, if that's an option, like what are the options for them to work with you or learn from you, and where do you want to send them to?
So they can go to my website, which is Ilene, I-L-E-N-E, IleneSmith.com, or DM me on Instagram at the Ilene Smith. Either way is how to get in touch with me.
Okay, awesome. Well, Ilene, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you for the beautiful book that you've written and that you've changed so many lives with. Again, that's Moving Beyond Trauma. And the website for Ilene is ilenesmith.com, I-L-E-N-E Smith.com. And go out there, make a wonderful week for yourself and for others. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.